continue to be in the driver's seat.
Well, you know, Canada's known for having universal health care, but they also have 30% of private insurance.
Well, this country will continue to do that too, but what will save the private insurance companies is that nobody's going to want to have Medicaid insurance for everybody, which is what it's leaning towards. And as it moves more in that direction, anybody with money is going to still want to have a private insurance company take care of them when it comes to the services and expenses that they're going to be reimbursing for.
Well, especially the way that you were explaining it at the beginning, where we have the same insurance that we have now that would be for everybody, so that everybody would get more of the same of what's not working, and there wouldn't be as much money for it, so they'd be getting less of what already we know doesn't work.
Exactly. That's the problem. So what we need is a transformation, a new model, a new paradigm, a new way of practicing medicine that makes more sense economically. And still, it is better for us. When you've got 50 million Americans that have a chronic disease, I mean 50% of Americans that have a chronic disease, that's 150 million Americans. That's an enormous number of people that are sick, and it tells you that the system doesn't work very well, or else they wouldn't be sick. So what would happen if we prevented those illnesses by just a few simple things, you know, the diet and exercise and stress reduction, etc. If we did that and people didn't get sick, think of the tremendous savings we'd have in healthcare. Then, if you had a single-payer system, you could spend 10% of the gross national product, like many countries do, rather than 18%. And we'd have a much stronger economy in general, because our businesses would then be able to compete in foreign markets. They wouldn't have this extra 15% or 18% tacked on to the cost of every product that we make in this country, that all those countries that have single-payer insurance don't have to have.
Well, one of the problems that we have with private insurance is that they do what we call skimming, where they just basically want to take care of people that are healthy, and they're denying claims to a lot of people that are sick.
Well,
and then the CEOs get these huge bonuses, and they spend a lot of money doing administrative costs. What are the administrative costs?
Well, I mean, the cost of advertising, I mean, they might spend $100 billion just on the administrative side that you wouldn't spend if you had a privatized system, because
so
you wouldn't have to advertise to convince people to come into your insurance program. The government wouldn't have that problem in a single payer. So there'd be nothing expended on that. And there's $100 billion.
So if you got rid of that, you could use that money that's saved from the administrative costs to pay for the people that are uninsured and underinsured.
Some of it, that's absolutely right.
$100 billion, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It might be enough to do that. So the insurance companies today have already proven to us that they cannot be responsible for service as the first thing. And that's why they're spending 30 cents of every dollar on administrative costs, profits, bonuses, things of that sort. If you had a single payer system that was government run, you'd have costs that would be about 5% of the total amount that's spent. So you're looking at 25 cents on the dollar that's just wasted in today's system. And now they're trying to tell us that they're sorry they did that, and they're not going to do it again.
They're running pretty scared right now.
Well, they've got so much money to spend. Okay, it's a lobby for it. I mean, what do you think it was back in 1992 that defeated Hillary Clinton's program? It was the big money from the insurance industry that just ate her alive.
Well, and two, when you realize that there are 1,300 private insurance companies.
It's big money.
That's big money. And their premiums also keep going up when our uninsured and underinsured are seen in the emergency rooms. Because the money has to come from somewhere, so the people that can afford the insurance, we have to pay more. Well, their premiums are going up so high, I would think that they would be pricing themselves out of the market anyway.
Well, you would think so, but they keep doing what they can get away with to make more profits, and that's been saving them, because people don't want to go on to a system where they're either uninsured or they have to try to qualify for Medicaid, which they can't. So that's the problem, and as it gets worse, see, the cost of insurance or health care is going up much faster than wages and much faster than inflation, 4 or 5 times as fast. So you're looking something like 10%, okay, of costs there that are really huge and don't need to be.
So if you were to figure out a plan yourself, what would it be? It would be nonprofit, universal, single payer?
I think there's
with prevention?
Well, you need two things. You definitely need to insure everybody. Health care is a right. Everybody deserves to have health care. That's the first thing that we're dealing with. I mean, we're talking about 47 million Americans, basically, or 46 million Americans that are uninsured because they don't qualify for Medicaid. They have too much money. They can't afford to purchase insurance because it's too expensive. And when it goes up 10% a year, and it can't keep up with inflation or the prices or wage increases, it's just separating the classes further and further. So the first thing we need is to be able to have health insurance for everyone, and it needs to be decent insurance, something that actually takes care of us and doesn't send 60% of America that's going bankrupt into bankruptcy.
Well, originally, you know, Kennedy and Conyers came up with a plan that just sounded almost too good to be true, but I've noticed over the time that we've been talking about all this that it keeps changing all the time. So,
well, they started out with the idea of Medicare is working pretty well. Let's do a program that's Medicare for everybody. And that's appealing, and it would be something that I think most of America would vote for. I would vote for that if I thought that the services that we're getting were still the same. But again, the cost of that is turning out to be much higher than anybody expected. And so we're going to have to put much more money into it rather than less money to have less care.
They were wanting to include other things too, though, you know, like vision and
well, those things are pretty much disappearing from that now.
Yeah.
They're making cuts in Medicare. They'll continue to make cuts in Medicare for everybody. But it's not just that everybody deserves health care. That's part one. Part two is we need a paradigm shift. We need a new model. We need a model that works, that can keep people from getting sick in the first place. Think of the amount of money you'd save in health care if you didn't get sick in the first place. You didn't have 2/3 of America overweight or obese. You didn't have an epidemic of diabetes and hypertension and heart disease and strokes and cancer because of our lifestyles. What if that was cut back 80%? We'd have 80% more dollars that we could spend for something else and be healthier. That, to me, makes a lot more sense than having a system like we've got today where we just keep trying to increase the system that we have even though it doesn't work. And we've got the vultures in big pharma and the vultures in the insurance industry and technology industry that will suck the life out of the healthcare system even though it's going off of a cliff. By the time it starts to hit the bottom of the cliff, they'll still be sucking the life out of it because that's how business works. That has to be stopped.
So we talked about the insurance companies and why they wouldn't like the universal health care. What about the pharmaceutical industries? Because I think that has something to do with their negotiating the prices of the pharmaceutical drugs.
Exactly. I mean, other countries spend 40% less than this country does. And most of these big pharma companies are U.S. companies. So people are now trying to buy their drugs from Canada or Mexico or overseas because they're cheaper in those countries because the single-payer systems simply negotiate. They'll play one company against another. They'll make an actual business out of it. And then if one company's trying to charge too much, they'll say, well, we're going to go to another one and we're going to buy it for less. And by the time they're through, they get about a 40% discount.
So they pay a lot less than we do. In fact, we pay the full retail price, don't we, for Medicare?
Yeah, I mean, that law that passed in 2003 under the Bush administration was really a scam. I mean, basically, it did get pharmaceutical reimbursement, which is good for people, but it guaranteed that the price couldn't be negotiated. And that's probably why it passed, is because big pharma has a lot of influence over whether something's going to pass in Congress or not, because of the affiliations they have with important people in Congress.
Has that been corrected now with this new administration?
Are you kidding? No, it's just that Barack Obama is a Democrat. He sees things a little bit differently than the Republicans do. He's not going to let big business flourish at the expense of splitting the classes even further. And so fortunately, those are things that will be changed. But there's going to be a fight along the way, and it's going to be a financial bloodbath.
Okay, so let's talk about what kind of a plan you would come up with if it were all up to you.
Okay, I have about 5 or 6 points that I think are important.
Let's start with the first one. Let's start with exercise.
Okay, right. If we exercise, the benefits of exercise are extraordinary. They get our bodies to adapt, to be able to do more things. They keep us healthier. They